And we're back, and hopefully we have the parent advocates that were on coming back for the next hour of this conference. Hold on, I'm sending information.
I'd rather everybody's longer too. Part 2. Yeah, try again. Just kind of go into what you're doing.
Same link. Okay. Come on back, everybody.
So let's make sure this will be ready for you. Make sure it works. We're going to it's in evaluation. Sponsors. There's one.
Hello.
You might be blocked. Did you
No, I don't think so.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello?
Hello. Welcome back.
Hi.
Is this Ryan?
No.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Ryan.
Yay. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Alicia.
Oh, I like it. I'm getting a nice reading.
Yeah?
Yeah, that was wonderful. Made it brighten up my day.
Yay.
Yay. We were trying to get some good answers out, and hopefully we'll get more good answers out for everybody.
Yep.
So I'll just tell them to try their those.
I just posted in the group, and I'm trying to. She didn't actually understand that. Oops.
Yeah, Arizona's notorious for rejecting lawsuits against judges.
Yeah, I've heard. Alicia, are you still there?
Hello? Hello?
Hi.
Ruh-roh.
But so we've been having a discussion, and hopefully Mike will come back, but Alicia has been waiting for a while. And so Alicia, will you please, I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Maybe.
Are you muted?
Check and see if down in the bottom right, left-hand corner of your screen. No, you're not. Well, now you're muted. It is muted. Okay. Okay, now you're not.
Oh, can you type in the chat?
Ruh-roh, Reggie.
Can you type over here in the Zoom chat? Oh, okay. So anyway, I've heard, Ryan, that there's been some difficulties with some parent advocates, and I want you to know that we're here not to be arguing or to be judging any of the parent advocates and their individual causes. We're here to encourage and connect. This is about getting every state connected however we can, with as much information as we can to provide the public with along parental rights and all the ways that we can become more informed and better parents even.
Yeah,
I understand.
Back.
Hello.
As you know, Lyra, I suffer a lot of garbage, so I was not happy with some of the things that have been going on in the last week, and just like everybody else, I love my children and I love my family, and to see kind of that garbage fly off, it was just too much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'm sorry to hear that. And there are other parents out there that are having problems too. We want you to know that this is really important work, and it is traumatizing. We understand it's traumatizing for every parent who's going through this. But we're not going to win if we keep on making fun of parents and criticizing how they live their lives. We need to be talking about what the solutions are going to be here for everybody, not discluding.
I understand.
So I am glad that you are still on board. And I know that you do a lot of footwork there in Arizona, helping to keep families together and bring children back to their families. Is that correct, Ryan?
Absolutely. That's absolutely true. I've been able to get 4 kids returned, but, it's still a lot of work out there, and it's not easy, it's real hard. And, basically what I've found out is to keep families together here is you have to produce a lot of scientific evidence proving CPS wrong. And it's a lot of research, and I spend countless days without sleeping, sometimes without eating, just to get a kid home.
Thank you for what you're doing.
It's hard.
We need more people like you. We need more people like you.
We need a team.
You go into this war with a family of 7, and you only walk away with 2. No, I ain't gonna, as long as I could help somebody else not walk away with the same damage, then I'm going to.
That's right. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to stop it from happening. A lot of us have lost our children to this tyrannical, I don't know what it is. It's a farce as far as I'm concerned. And
freaking gang. They're a gang. They act like a mafia or a gang.
Yeah. They're a bunch of bullies stealing your kids.
And we want to stop that. And, I'm not sure I'm going to ever get my children back at this point. I have appealed repeatedly to the state appeal court and to the state Supreme Court to no avail. And I just learned recently that the state Supreme Court only has to approve 5% of all appeals in this family court mess. And so the rest of us are SOL. And that is just too tragic to even comprehend. But that is what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Mike.
Absolutely. You know what I tell parents? I tell, when their rights get severed, I tell them to appeal. The second thing I say is go down there and file, right in their CPS case. I don't care if they're right in the middle of it. I have them start to file proceedings for federal. That way, when their court case ends with their CPS case ends, they're also, they're going to appeal it after the CPS, after they get TPR'd. And then they're going to appeal that, but their federal case has already been kicked into high gear, and all they have to do is produce the evidence afterwards.
Right.
It's just kind of, it backs and backs. And a lot of this is my own experience. I haven't personally gone to federal court. Every parent I talk to, I tell them I haven't. My situation, Lyra, you know about my situation. It's a lot different than most people's. And, I applaud biological parents that are fighting and they're winning their kids back. Mine just happens to be, those kids happen to be my family that I was adopting. So the situation's a lot different. And that's part of the reason why I haven't been able to go to federal court. So I feel like biological family members that can take the children, family, are having a hell of a, we don't have a leg to stand on versus a biological parent. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So if a biological parent is found unfit, the biological family is being shoved to the wayward side, or they're being retaliated on. And if they have children that are under the age of 18, those children are being jerked from the biological family members to, look, they're unfit. We had to pull their kids too. But it was all trumped up BS.
Yes. And
I'm finding a lot of cases like that in Arizona. Even in my case was pretty difficult, as you know. They actually went after friends and stuff that tried, standing up for me. They threatened to take their kids. So the situation here in Arizona is just a pure out war zone. As you know about the Shores case, that case is just awful, awful, awful.
Somebody needs to just remind these people what their jobs are. Their jobs aren't to take care of children. Or their jobs
But they're not taking care of them.
They just think they're supposed to find one thing and take them, and that's their job. Like it's their quota. Oh, look at how many I got.
Well,
that's how it feels.
Well,
And that's
but
not
here's a question that I would really like to get an answer from the director of DCS. You know, I'd really like this answer. What's stable about foster care?
Good question.
What's emotionally fitting about foster care? Nothing. What's mentally? It's none of it's right.
No.
What's good about a group home where the kids have to, you know, they're being bullied by, other kids that have been really abused, and your kids, I forgive me for saying this, but as you know, I had a child go through that foster care. I can go to federal court on my own personal child, but I can't go on my family. So, my son was in foster care. He was emotionally, mentally, physically abused. He won't, kids would hold him down. I don't want to even say what they were doing to him. And yet, according to if you were allowing that to happen in your home, your children would be removed. But because it's foster care, it's totally different. Why aren't they held to the same standards? And I repeatedly asked this question. Why aren't they held to the same standards that we are?
Yeah, why aren't they?
Children are allowed to beat up on each other. Why are they letting those children beat up on each other?
And why aren't there background checks on foster families before they get to be foster parents?
Well, group homes. Why isn't there cameras in there? Why isn't there cameras in the main living spaces?
Yeah.
I'm serious. I mean, there were some things that I've heard over the phone when on the phone on phone visits for 2 years with my son. Only saw my son 3 times the whole time. I fought like cats and dogs to get my kids home. And yeah, the things I was hearing, staff members calling your kids little SOBs, nobody loves them. I mean, really? Is this how we treat children?
Oh, how awful. Yeah, it's really awful. So,
I raised very valid questions. And in my case, one of the things I would like to get into federal court is how children are treated in foster care.
Yeah, yes. Awareness.
It's not only awareness, they violated every constitutional right my son had.
Yes.
Right.
And this is
they violated their own. Look, if you can ever get your hand on a foster care for the children who go into custody, the handbook they give them for the kids that are in custody, they're according to, I'm just going to tell you what Arizona has. According to Arizona, they're allowed to be in a safe environment that's mentally and emotionally healthy for them. They're allowed medical access. They're allowed school appropriate to them. They're allowed to clean clothes, warm bed to sleep in, food in their stomach. That's not happening.
No.
Our children are turning into punching bags and verbal punching bags for the system. This is not emotionally right for them. The CPS kept, every time as my family and my kid was in custody, we kept asking them, well, what about their emotional and mental stability?
They don't pay attention to emotional abuse. That's like, what? I mean,
but that's one of the things they accused me of.
I know. But it's all changing.
So if you're concerned about me supposedly emotionally abusing my children, then why aren't you paying attention to what you're doing to my children? Because every time they jerk a child out of the home, not only is it traumatic, but it's emotional abuse.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what we are doing here, not trying, but what we are doing here is we are connecting the different parent advocate groups together with their individual sections of the pieces of the puzzle, because we have a broken system. Well, we can't abolish a broken system if we don't have something to replace it with. We can't take away laws that are there unless we have something that we can put in place to replace it so that children are still protected, the actual children that are in danger, and children that are not in danger are staying with their families. And, you know, it's right now it's incentivized adoption, Title IV, that is driving CPS agencies and courts and lawyers and everyone to continue taking children away from perfectly good families. And, you know, so we want to work on what we can change to make it so that the incentives go for keeping families together.
One of the things, has anybody asked their attorney in the state they're in what the burden of proof is for the state to prove that a parent has been abusive to their children? I'm just curious what you guys have asked.
I think the issue there that people don't understand is the burden of proof falls on the judge. It's not CPS. CPS could say, hey, you touched your child with your fingertip. And the judge gets to decide whether or not that's abuse or not.
Let me tell you what I was told by Gary Scales. And that's an attorney here in Arizona. He was my first one on the little kids and on my baby cousins. And he was actually, I ended up firing him just because I wanted to go pro se and the judge wouldn't. But his exact words to me was, the state only has a 15% burden of proof.
15?
That's it. 15%.
You can't put a burden of proof, a percentage on a burden of proof. So it's either a fact.
The state of Arizona, all they have to do is say that you are a detriment to your child, and that's the 15% they have to sever your rights in the state of Arizona. Not very many people know that, but I was lucky enough to have an attorney that told me that.
Well, I don't think that your attorney was being very accurate with you. So there's different
the judge told me the same thing right to my face.
Okay, but there's different circumstances and facts depending on which family you're looking at. But beyond that, the bottom line is the judge in every state is the one that gets to decide. And when you're talking about procedures in place to combat that, well, that's what your founding fathers did. The balance of power on judges were jury trials. So
but one
judges
of the things
get to
that we need to look
out.
at is burden of proof. What does CPS have to prove? Burden of proof is a big thing. As of right now, in the state of Arizona, it doesn't matter what case it is, whether it's family or it's criminal. It's only 15% that they have to prove, and they can convict you. That's it.
Let me take another example. So we just had a murder that we think is a murder, but there's no body, and the burden of proof was a one-piece strand of hair found in the trunk. Well, that's enough of a burden of proof to convict this person for a life. So if you're
in the state of Arizona, yes. In the state of Arizona, yes.
Okay. So the burden of proof is based upon the case in front of you. So if a child's been abused and the parent says, I wasn't even there, and the state finds a strand of hair in your car from a child that you never met, that's enough of a burden of proof to put you away. So the bottom line is, what's the combat, or how do we combat that? We don't get rid of judges. I heard that suggestion that we get rid of the whole judicial system. You're bringing down the whole entire United States.
No, I
fathers. No, it's
legislation.
That whole right. Well, legislation's
legislation.
There.
The
bottom line
legislation does, but the legislation in each state is different. And each state has a certain amount of burden of proof that they have to prove in order to do something to a family. If you do not get the legislation where the burden of proof falls on the state to prove that your guilt, then that's the problem we're having. I'm just telling you how it works in Arizona.
I understand that, but the bottom line is the state doesn't, where the responsibility lies, and people need to understand this, is on the judge. Are there differences in the judges on burden of proof? Absolutely. If I'm a judge, believe me, you're going to have to really hurt the child, and I need to know that you're a detriment to the child and you're going to be a danger. Is another judge that's been doing this for 10 years really going to feel differently? Yeah, they probably have taken, hundreds of children away from their families because somebody forgot to pack lunch, stuff like that. It all depends. The bottom line is the responsibility falls back on the judge. We're not going to win that way. We're not going to have burden of proofs or laws that say that you have to meet this burden of proof because each situation is different. And you're not going to have laws that say 50-50 custody.
Okay, wait a minute. Hold on for a second. Your accuser is CPS. The judge is supposed to hear your evidence from both parties.
That's correct.
And CPS, when you go into court, right? Now listen, I'm just telling you how it works here in Arizona. The problem that we're having is the judge shuts down parents from producing hardcore evidence if this is not going on.
Yes.
So
because
now
a judge gets to decide what's admissible evidence and what's not, and what they're going to hear is evidence and what they're not. That's part of being a judge.
And that happens even in California here. I mean, it happens.
It happens everywhere because a judge gets to decide what actually is admissible evidence and what's not. And parents are not informed as to what.
So basically what's going on here is that CPS can write down anything, and that's the truth.
Yep. And
now
you know what we have
now,
here?
now I made a whole packet with exhibits on my whole entire family, both kids, my little cousins and my son. Do you know the judge rejected it?
Yeah, that's hearsay. If the cousin's not there, the little kid's not with you, and even if you have it signed and notarized, it's still hearsay.
No, wait a minute. No. These are doctors that seen my children. These are why they were YMCA soccer. They saw my children. These are preschool teachers, kindergarten teachers.
I'm not arguing with your evidence or that you are right. I'm not arguing with that. I understand
but that should
what you
not
did.
have been rejected, considering that these were already professional psychiatrists and everything that were involved, saying that the children were not in danger. But the judge is rejecting it and basing it off of what CPS lies about. The judge has to take. We need to change something to the point where judge can take actual evidence, not bullshit.
Well, and
here's your problem. That's changing the judiciary, which you're not going to change, because bottom line is it's the same in criminal, family, civil. Well, not family. There are no judges. No juries, and the judge gets to decide as a judicial function what's admissible as evidence and what's not, and that's something that you can try and appeal, but your chances of being successful are going to be very slim to none. That's the bottom line of what the judiciary is. They get certain things that they get to decide on. They get to decide what the facts are. You may have 1,000 people say you're the best mom in the entire world, but you forgot to pack lunch for Junior. So the judge gets to say, well, based on my factual finding and my allowance of evidence, you're a terrible mother. And your beautiful child, I'm taking away from you.
So there's way too much control in just one person's hand.
Way too much control. In divorce court,
that's
what we're finding out is these judges are all, these judges are all
review board where they have
family
to do
law attorneys.
Each judge has to go under checks and balance by a sibling.
We have a review
like
board. We have a review board for judges. You know what happened just recently in our county? The criminal judge pulled the deputy district attorney in his office, coached her on how to get a criminal trial in his courtroom. So she complained, God bless her soul, and went straight to her district attorney. So you know what the California Judicial Council or the judiciary did? They did not see. It's really hard to get a judge out when we, the people, voted them in. So once we voted them in, pretty much nobody's going to do anything until we vote them out. So this judge got moved to family court. Then in family court, while he was in family court, his cases got overturned because he was lying about the evidence that had supposedly been presented in his criminal court trials. So he's already had one case overturned that the district attorney now has to retry. So the bottom line is that's the power of the judges. And the checks and balances have not been occurring in family court or dependency court. They are in criminal court. You hear criminal court cases all the time.
Not here in Arizona.
You have jury options for criminal courts.
Yeah, but the jury here in Arizona, before anything ever gets to criminal court, they settle. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's
which
part of
I
the
don't
jury.
think a lot of
That's
people
part of
should
having a
celebrate.
jury. Well, part of having a jury option is that you better have enough evidence, because if you're going to take something to jury trial, you better make sure you're actually not guilty or you are actually guilty. Nobody wants a jury trial, neither the guilty side nor the non-guilty side, unless they have a rock solid case.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have the right to do that and to form our own and to say, I'm not going to participate in your courts. It's so corrupt. I'm going to.
Yeah, but what if your ex is filed against you or CPS is filed against you? You don't show up, you lose. So you have a right not to show up, but then you automatically lose your case. So if you have a vindictive spouse or you have CPS who wants your beautiful child, then you lose by not appearing. You have your right to defend yourself, but you have to show up. That's your constitutional right.
See, I would have been able to have a jury trial on both of my cases, my cousin's case and my son's case. I would have been able to take CPS right in the penis and it would have been over with.
But
I
you don't
wasn't
have
allowed to
that
have a
right,
jury
and
trial.
that's right. And so these judges are running amok with complete power and control, and they hear who knows how many cases a day, and they don't care anymore, and they don't have respectability outside the courtroom. And you know, there are good judges. There are good judges who don't want kids to go into, who want to make every effort available.
But then they get
kids.
retaliated against, like the Shores families. The judge got retaliated against, and the CPS worker went around that judge that originally ordered those kids home because there was no evidence, circumstantial evidence, she said, because the parents were good parents. The schools even said everything. And the CPS worker here retaliated not once, but twice against the Shores.
So they went to a different judge. But see, the Shores should have.
They went.
The Shores should have been able to stop that. That's a judge shopping. So attorneys do that all the time.
No, the judge didn't want to hear their previous case. Although they were charged with the same thing 3 different times, they were able to get Baby Naya home, but they weren't able to get the other. But I think the reason why Baby Naya was able to get home is because by the time they took Baby Naya from them, they had gotten so much publicity that the minute they took Baby Naya, people were on with the police, they were on with the courts, they were on the phone. They raised hell, and Baby Naya was able to go home. But it took that extreme of you have 3 different cases here. You understand what I'm saying.
So
nobody should ever have to go through that.
Protection.com website. We have actually a opportunity that has been presented by the Human Rights Tribunal, which is part of the United Nations, to go above even the federal court to have our cases reviewed, and they're working to put together a great jury, and you are invited to participate as a great juror there, and you can also provide your case if you feel you have had your civil rights and human rights and parental rights violated by any court in the United States and family courts, and provide that evidence of the proof that they failed to observe your civil and parental rights.
Question for you. Is everything done in California through family court there?
No,
there's a dependency court. It's only if the county doesn't have the funds that the dependency court judge.
Okay, is it juvenile court there that you have to go to? Okay,
yeah,
that's
some
what it
counties
is here.
have. Yeah, some counties have juvenile courts. Some have, I think Santa Cruz only has a dependency court that hears juvenile cases and family law cases, I think. And then some of the bigger courts have 3 separate courtrooms.
One of my questions was, and I got kind of feared out of several people, and I'm just going to tell you what my thing was, and I brought it up to legislators, and I said, okay, so this is CPS is a family issue, not a juvenile issue. It's not like our kids are delinquent and robbing people and stealing cars. Why are these children in Arizona being put through the same system? Because these judges in juvenile court also see little convicted murderers and car thieves and drug dealers. So, they already got a bad case for parents that let their kids run rampant, and I've noticed this because let me give you an example. So my 15-year-old son's in custody, and he's acting out in the group home because he wants to come home. My son's acting out. It's a typical behavior of a child that's, one, put through trauma, and two, nothing's going home, and they want to go home. They want to go home. And the judge is all like, well, your son's a little criminal. I see them all the time. Well, because you deal with little criminals all day long, you now label my son a little criminal. Do you see what I'm saying?
It all comes down to a judge. That's the bottom line. I mean, maybe you get a new judge one time that feels differently. But the problem is it all comes down to a judge. And that's unfortunately the way or fortunately. I mean, some people argue that we have the best legal system in the world. And I don't necessarily disagree with that argument. But part of our system was to have checks and balances on these judges. And it's not there. So that's the problem. Like you said, you have a judge that sees so many cases, your kids just one like the other one. They don't even want to hear what your son has to say or anybody else has to say. And as far as going up and above, the
judge wouldn't even let my son come into a courtroom.
Right. And as far as going up and above the federal court system and the state, up above the state court systems, and then also the federal court systems and going to the UN, that's all fine and dandy. And the UN will hear human rights issues. Right? But the bottom line is you're still here in the state. You're subject to state laws, state court judges, and that type of thing. And you're still part of the United States. You're subject to all the federal rules and laws and regulations. And the feds will send it back to the states for anything to do with parental rights or children's rights or visitation rights or legal rights to your children. So, I mean, it's almost all a lesson in futility until we get the correct checks and balances that were designed to hold judges not from having the kind of control that they do. And
does anybody know what that used to be?
I agree that we need to reaffirm the checks and balances in this country.
Well, no. What my question was, does anybody know what the checks and balances used to be?
It didn't used to be attorneys, family law attorneys becoming judges, because family law attorneys are not necessarily a class of people. I'm sorry to say.
And guardian
that you want to be judges. Right. They've already, compromised their, what do you call it? Their way of thinking, their way of life.
It's
they're already on a destination for money or whatever reason.
What about term limits?
Judges have term limits, but here's the thing. I asked my dad this. He's 83 years old. I said, out of all the times you voted for a judge, when did you ever know anything about one of those judges? He said, I never did. And it's true for everybody. So there's term limits, but we, the people, have been doing a horrible job as far as our judiciary is concerned. We vet our legislature now. We vet our senators and our assemblymen. You know what? They're not even the people that have the most effect on us personally in our communities and our families and our counties. It's judges, and we are horrible. I mean, there's a group out there that's trying to do this, but when I go on their website, I can't even find my county, more or less my judge in my county, because it's disorganized and that type of thing. So and that's again why we have to be in state groups on state level, on county levels, because we have to know who our judges are when they're coming up for re-election, who's good and who's bad.
And the Coalition for the Protection of Children and Families website, www.coalitionforprotection.com, we are working on doing state-by-state pages, and each state we are also creating a little pamphlet for parental rights for each state, so parents have the rights in their hand in case of any kind of confrontation with legal, jurisdictional stuff through CPS. Yeah. And I wanted to let you all know that Alicia has also commented that in Louisiana, the child custody CPS cases are also in juvenile court as well. So again, we find that many of these cases are being filtered along with other criminal cases in the judicial system. So the judges are...
Well, yeah, that's one of my concerns is why isn't in Arizona in a family court versus a a juvenile court, because now they're looking at our kids. And I'm just from personal experience, you know, your kids act out in CPS custody because, you know, one, they're traumatized, two, because they don't want to be there anymore. They're being held against their will. And the judges looks at them as they're just another, you know, juvenile court, especially if they just look at them as if they're little criminals.
See, that's
disturbing to me.
That goes back to the fact that you need a good, strong state group, because that's a chief justice issue. So they get a budget and they decide where their budget's going to go and how many judges they need and, you know, all that kind of where they're going to be and which counties need what. And I think the counties also have a fund for judges and they decide as well. So getting back to state groups, I don't want to pass this by. So we have, as you know, we introduced the California ballot initiative to allow a jury trial in family law cases and dependency court. There's a group in Washington that's going to introduce the same legislation. It's still going to be a lot more detailed. They've gone through with a fine-tooth comb. And in January, we are hopefully having a group in Colorado that is going to introduce that legislation. And then we just are starting to talk to a group in Missouri. Not every state can do this, but some of them can. And so we do have groups. We have groups. What we don't want is a whole bunch of different groups opening up for these states.
If you get that passed, is there any way that somebody could, you know, you get the legislation passed, could somebody send that to me? Because I'm more than willing to get a group here together to fight for that. It's not an issue. I have, you know, I had Marissa Hamilton fights for us, Del McCardle. I mean, we have people that will fight. We even have some attorneys that will fight. We just need to take a look at what another state's been able to do. Does that make sense?
Well, here's the thing with Arizona. You had that right. It was like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, and for some reason you lost it. Texas has never lost it. So Texas, I think from the time it became a republic, it's always had jury trials for CPS and for family law issues. But Arizona, you're going to have to look for your legislation. But it wouldn't be hard to reenact. But the easiest way to do it is through a legislator, through an assemblyman, through a senator, because then you don't have to go out and collect wet signatures.
Yeah,
and we have some people that were, yeah.
We have 4 minutes, everybody.
That's what I was afraid of. What I don't want to see happen is that you guys introduce new state groups throughout Facebook or, you know, online or that type of thing. We need to get together. So I don't know if Hennie's still on the line.
She is not, unfortunately.
Okay, so they have a state group. It's like State Families Matter, and we've been trying to merge with them, with our groups, with State Family Justice Project. So our Washington group was our first group. It's Washington Family Justice Project. They also have a Washington Families Matter. So there's 2 big groups there already. Not big. They're like 40 people, 30, 40 each.
Right. I'm in the California State Families Matter and the Arizona State Families Matter groups. And what you were saying, Washington also had another group. I want to make sure we have this information.
Yeah. So we want to make so if those groups are going to go statewide, then can you PM me? Because what we want to make sure is our groups are sticking with your groups, that we're not reinventing any wheels there.
Well, Arizona has one, but everybody is very low-key because the CPS workers like threaten your life here.
Well, what we're finding out is a lot of these state groups have a lot of people in them that are not from your state. So they're like the usual people that are not. I went through our Arizona Family Matters group here, and I went through it, and everybody here is from Arizona, well, with the exception of Lyra and maybe 2 others. But that's only because they're part of another, you know, Family Matters group.
Yes.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
We don't want to reinvent the wheel, even though we are pushing jury trial options in all the states.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all fighting for the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We're trying to make it so that there's not the friction that's been happening in some groups and people starting to accuse others and the moles, and you know, there's a lot of things that we have to work to keep ourselves protected from those who would rather see us all fall apart. And I want to thank you all for coming tonight and speaking and sharing information about the state projects that each of you are working on. This is great, and we want to have the ability to be able to do this on a weekly basis. We meet every Saturday from 6 to 7 and then 7 to 8 usually, but I got a little ahead of myself today. And I'd like to please invite all of you to join the Coalition for the Protection of Children and Families on Facebook. The more of us that are truly dedicated to stopping this tyranny, judicial tyranny, we need to be on the same page and communicating. And I like the fact that we're getting together by state. There's, I think, even a greater piece that we can all be a part of here. And so I just want to thank you all for coming and sharing.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Not a problem. I'm glad. Thank you for clearing up some things, because I'm like still, even though 8 years out of my case, I'm still a little confused about how everything's working.
Yes,
I do have a question on CPS, because we have a family right now that's what prevents you, so CPS or DHSS or whatever you want to call it,